My name's Dan Oliver. I'm the editor of .NET Magazine, which is a British magazine for web designers and developers. If you're looking out for it in the US, you won't find it because it's called Practical Web Design. I'll be moderating today's panel, which includes a fantastic group of designers that we've managed to assemble today. No money's changed hands regarding the name of this panel. We're not just talking about WordPress. We're talking about Drupal, Squarespace, movable type, the kind of general CMS tools that people use. Some critics have argued that CMS tools can make web designers lazy and stunt creativity.
WordPress is something we've all used. I've used it. Everyone on the panel's used it. For me, my standpoint is that what I have a problem is when people kind of get a little locked onto it as maybe like a sitemap or, a structure that should be thought of first before you design. There's this feeling that we're kind of losing touch with this more artistic side as we kind of, focus on the tools as the initial sitemap. So, that's kind of where I'm kind of coming at is, every tool. I mean, we had a previous discussion, and, every site that I've built in the past 3 years has had some sort of CMS behind it, but they don't all have to look like that, or they don't have to feel like that. The information is, how you get the information is, it's just a tool. It's an aspect of, that comes in behind your design and your unique spin, but you maybe shouldn't have it on your brain when you're doing it. It might limit you.
I think I sort of agree to some extent. I think it's a matter of perspective. So I think if you approach a site thinking, I'm going to design a site, I think that's a particular mindset. But if you come at a site saying, I'm going to design a WordPress site, or I'm going to design a movable type site, or I'm going to design an expression engine site, or whatever kind of site it is, you already seem to be locked into the constraints of that, and you're already thinking a certain way, like what can I do with this tool, and what can I not do with this tool? And I don't think that kind of fosters a bit of creativity in that. I think it kind of locks you into the constraints of what this tool can do out of the box. So I think it's just a matter of the way that you approach the type of project that you're doing, whether it's a personal project or a client project. It's sort of like, having that open mindset kind of lets you create rather than being a slave of the tool that you're working with.
Now we sort of anecdotally, up in the green room, had someone explain to us that one of their developers actually uses WordPress as a starting point. Something that we weren't sure would happen in, agencies of a certain size. So, I mean, do you see that as a problem?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can answer the question, but I've got something to say. There's that famous phrase that the two most dangerous things in the world are handguns and content management systems, which seems kind of... Feel free to laugh at any point, it doesn't get any better. It's just, I'm down with the Pythagoreans, actually. Pythagoras said that, nature is number, and if you apply that to, data, at the end of the day, WordPress is just a load of data that you can manipulate and twist into wondrous things. I guess the problem is that it's the default mindset of people. I think what's killing web design is lack of imagination, quite frankly. People are referencing print still. The web is not print. We need to move away from this idea of, paper behind glass, as it's once been described, and I think that's still true. We need to get away from that. So I find WordPress actually quite, empowering. Constraints are good. And as for using it on a large-scale project, we've offered that to clients occasionally, but we always end up thinking, well, we can build a content management system that is quite bespoke and does the job better for that particular client. So, because we'd have to hack WordPress to death, and maybe Drupal is a better example. They probably could do that, but we always end up reinventing the wheel, which I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing, actually.
So I've been using WordPress since it was in beta, and it was just something that I was comfortable with. I've used it for a while. For anyone that thinks that WordPress is hard to fully customize, it's not. There's so much documentation out there, and you can basically make it do anything you want it to do. Just putting that out there.
Which takes us on to our next question, which is whether CMS tools are actually broadening the gap between graphic design and web design.
I'm working with a person right now who is a really good creative director. and is a creative director of a traditionally print-based agency. And she's trying to learn how to work on the web. And I think for her, and for a person like her, she doesn't really understand the rules, quote unquote, the rules of web design, and she's just trying to learn it. And I think for somebody like her, it's absolutely not widening the gap because it allows her to be able to learn on the fly. So something as easy as a one-click install of WordPress or setting up a Tumblr blog, that's really easy for her to do. And in the process, she can kind of learn, oh, if I tweak this, I can change this. Or if I change this point size, it does this. Or if I modify this position absolute to position relative, now it changes this. You know, all sorts of coding constraints and design constraints. And for somebody like her, I think it allows her to be able to kind of bridge the gap herself, and it acts as a tool for her. But on the other hand, I think there are people who kind of see it as its own different world. And I think, you know, people that are afraid of coding and people that are afraid of designing their own things, it is widening the gap because it just adds a new level of complexity and it adds a higher learning curve for them to be able to overcome.
The problem is those people are rare. It's just part of the tool set. A lot of the solutions we've done lately are completely code-based, but the end thing is actually a piece of graphic design. I'd like to see those two worlds come together a lot more. I think there is a problem with people who come from print trying to impose how they, you know, they basically, and you know what, I see this a lot now is posters on, you know, it's basically a poster as a website. You know, if, I swear to God, if fonts get any bigger, I'm going to need a frigging big monitor. It's like, for God's sake. It's like, we've got big monitors now, let's have big fonts. And it looks like a poster, and when I print it, it looks cool. Jesus, is that what we want? Well, it's not what I want, so you can count me out.
It's almost a change in mindset that we sort of referred to before. But yeah, I kind of agree that sometimes we have to be more playful and not stick to these kind of hard and fast rules that are kind of set down. But you know, we'll kind of talk about that a little more later.